Little girl hugs millionaire at his wife's grave. Then says 5 words that freeze him. Rain had stopped falling hours ago, but the marble was still wet. Nathan Cole stood silently at the foot of the grave. He didn't say much during these visits. He didn't cry. He didn't talk to the stone. He just stood there, always at the same time every Friday, with the same flowers. They never lasted the week. The headstone was modest, despite everything he could afford. It read simply, Claire Emerson, Cole beloved wife, fierce soul, always mine, 1985, 2024. The woman he'd loved quietly, lost tragically, and never fully understood. Today, however, something was different. He felt it before he saw it. A quiet presence behind him. Not a bird. Not the wind. Small arms wrapped around his waist. His breath caught. He turned slowly, expecting maybe a fan or a confused mourner. But it was a child. A little girl, barefoot, with tangled brown hair and a dress that looked like it hadn't been washed in days. Her eyes were wide, familiar somehow, and full of something ancient and aching. Her voice, when it came, was small, unshaken, certain. Daddy, you forgot about me. Nathan's mind went blank. The only thing he could do was stare at her. Because there it was again. That name. Daddy. And behind her, on the grass, was a small pink backpack with fading cartoon flowers. It was torn on the side. A drawing stuck out from the front pocket. Crayons. Paper. A stick figure of a woman with long hair. And a note, barely readable. Me and Mommy at the park. She said you are brave. His knees gave slightly. He crouched. What did you say? She looked at him, head tilted. You're Nathan. Claire said you'd come. She said you always come. But the flowers keep dying. Nathan's pulse hammered. He looked around. No one else. Just him, the child, and the grave of the woman who never once mentioned a daughter. He managed to ask her name. Ellie. Her voice barely reached above the birds in the distance. I ran away again. They're mean at the home. You live in a shelter. She nodded. Mommy got sick. They said she had heart sleep. She pointed to the grave. That's her, right? Nathan tried to breathe. Claire had left him once. Vanished from his life for 4 years. Then she returned out of nowhere, last year, saying she was dying. They had reconnected, slowly, briefly, but never once did she mention Ellie. He didn't know what to do, or what to say. But the little girl had already sat down next to the grave. Her hand gently brushed off the old petals. She picked up the wilting flowers Nathan had left and laid them again more carefully. I came to see her every week. They stopped letting me, so I ran away. It took longer this time. Where's your dad? He asked before realizing the weight of his own question. She looked up at him like he was the dumbest person alive. You are. Nathan stared at the ground. His mind was flipping through memories. Claire's last days, her thin hands, her tired voice. She'd held so much pain. She'd always looked like she was about to say something, but she never did. Now here was a girl. No shoes, no home. Just a bag and a voice and a face that was hers. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but he didn't look. Ellie tugged at his sleeve. Can I come with you? Just for a little bit? I don't like the lady at the home. She yells at us when it rains. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. Nathan didn't drive straight home. He wasn't ready. Instead, he pulled into a quiet diner on the edge of town, the kind that never updated its sign and still smelled like pancakes at all hours. Ellie sat across from him in a red booth, her small hands wrapped tightly around a glass of chocolate milk. She hadn't said a word since they left the cemetery. He watched her. She didn't fidget or stare at a screen like other kids her age. Instead, she traced a circle on the table with her finger over and over, head down, eyes dull. That quiet repetition unsettled him. "How long were you at the shelter?" he asked, careful to keep his voice light. She shrugged. "Since they took Mommy away." The words dropped like stones between them. Her tone was empty, practiced, like she'd had to explain this before. Many times. She glanced out the window. "I ran away 3 times. This time I went further." Nathan exhaled through his nose, leaning back. "How did you find the cemetery?" "Mommy drew a map once. Said if anything happened, I should go there." He stared at her. A map. Claire had always thought like that, half artist, half romantic. She probably thought it was beautiful, even in death, to guide her daughter back to something familiar. But it wasn't beautiful. It was heartbreaking. Their food arrived. Pancakes for her. Untouched salad for him. Ellie picked at her plate quietly. She didn't scarf the food like someone starving, but she didn't seem to enjoy it either. It was mechanical, the act of eating. A waitress stopped by and smiled at them, though her eyes lingered. "She yours?" Before Nathan could answer, Ellie nodded. "Yes, he's my dad." The waitress smiled more brightly. "She's adorable. You two enjoy." Nathan watched her leave, throat tight. He hadn't said yes, hadn't said anything, but Ellie had. He paid the bill and led her back to the car. The sky had turned overcast again, a blanket of gray pressing low. The ride to his house was silent. Ellie hugged her pink backpack to her chest the whole time, the frayed corner revealing another crayon drawing, this time of a tall man holding hands with a stick figure girl. At the front door, Nathan hesitated before unlocking it. His house was cold, sleek, modern. It had been designed to keep people out, not welcome them in. Glass and concrete everywhere, with polished floors and minimalist walls. No warmth, no softness. Ellie walked in slowly, eyes wide. She spun once in the foyer, then stopped, staring at a framed photo on a side table. "That's Mommy," she said. He stepped beside her. It was the only photo he had of Claire during her last months. She was smiling, barely, sunlight falling on her hair as she sat on the back patio. She looked peaceful in that picture, but he remembered how tired she really was that day. How she kept coughing between sentences. "She said you used to bring her books, and that you never yelled." Nathan swallowed hard. "No, I didn't yell." She touched the frame with a fingertip. "She said you were brave once, but then something broke you." That took the air out of his lungs. He led her to the guest room. The sheets were crisp and untouched. The room was functional, designed for visitors who never stayed. She climbed onto the bed, knees tucked under her, and looked around. "Can I keep my drawings here?" she asked. "Of course." "Can the door stay open at night?" "Always." He paused at the doorway, watching her unpack her tiny bag. A doll missing an eye, a comb, a folded-up shirt 2 sizes too big, a notebook with a torn cover. "Ellie, did your mom ever write anything? Like letters? Or leave anything behind for you?" She thought for a second, then nodded. "I had a box. They said they'd mail it. It had cards and papers. Mommy wrote lots of things." Nathan's heart squeezed. Letters. Notes. Claire had always processed emotions through writing, but she hadn't shared them with him. Maybe because she didn't know how. Or maybe she was scared he wouldn't want to know. He left her room and sat on the couch in silence. The house, once his fortress, now felt like a glass box. Every surface reflected his own emptiness back at him. And yet, a child was in the other room, unpacking a life that used to be his. A life he hadn't known he lost until now. Nathan hadn't planned on keeping her more than one night. That's what he told himself. Just one night, to get her clean, fed, and warm. Just one night to figure out where the system had failed her. Just one night to let the weight of Claire's secrets settle in. But one night became 3. On the 4th morning, he made her scrambled eggs, and she asked if he knew how to braid hair. He didn't, but he tried. It looked terrible, but she smiled at the mirror anyway. Mommy used to say it's okay if things look messy, as long as they're made with love. Nathan couldn't look at her for a moment. Later that day, he drove her to a pediatric clinic in town. The receptionist's smile dimmed when she asked about Ellie's guardian status. "Are you her legal custodian?" I'm not sure," Nathan admitted. "I believe I might be her biological father. Her mother passed recently." The woman stared at him. "Sir, if you're not on her birth certificate, we'll need to contact the county before treatment, or have Child Protective Services verify placement." He nodded, jaw tight, and stepped outside to make the call himself. Ellie sat on a bench, legs swinging again, watching birds fight over a piece of bread. She seemed unfazed. She was used to being bounced around, being questioned, being unwanted. The call didn't go well. CPS confirmed that Ellie had been placed in a group foster care facility after her mother's death. The file said no next of kin, no father listed, no emergency contacts. And now he wanted to take her home? "You'll need to file a temporary guardianship petition," the agent explained flatly. "And we'll need DNA proof of paternity. In the meantime, we're obligated to return the child to care." "No," Nathan said, sharper than he intended. "I'm not putting her back there." "That's not your decision right now, Mr. Cole." Back at the clinic, Ellie was still watching the birds. When he returned, she didn't ask what happened. Maybe she already knew. Maybe she'd heard too many grown-up conversations from behind too many closed doors. Instead, she said, "Can we get ice cream?" Nathan nodded. She picked strawberry. That evening, he made calls. He didn't use assistants. He didn't outsource. He called the attorney who had helped him through his company's biggest merger 5 years ago. "Family law's not my thing," the man said, "but I can recommend someone who knows their way around emergency custody." By midnight, Nathan had legal forms in his inbox. By morning, he had his blood drawn for a DNA test. While waiting for results, he started reading. Claire's apartment had been emptied by the property manager 2 weeks after her death. Her belongings were in boxes, some of which had already been donated. Others were in storage. He tracked them down. Inside one of the boxes was a small, fabric-covered journal. His name was on the first page. For Nathan, if he ever wants to understand. He didn't open it right away. He couldn't. Instead, he watched Ellie sleep from the hallway that night. Her small figure curled under a comforter too large, surrounded by soft nightlight stars he'd ordered hours earlier. She clutched her doll tightly. She looked safe. And for the first time in months, so did he. 2 days later, a caseworker arrived. She was younger than he expected, with kind eyes but clipped speech. She walked through his house with quiet efficiency, noting details, asking questions. "You understand this isn't a typical placement," she said. "Even with a positive DNA test, there's a review process." "I understand," he said. "And you're aware of the financial obligations?" "I've met more frightening numbers than diapers and school tuition." Her lips twitched into a smile. "This isn't a business deal, Mr. Cole." "No," he said. "It's not." She looked toward the guest room. Ellie was in there drawing something in the corner. Her laughter rang once, soft but real. The caseworker sighed, then handed him a checklist. "I'll be back in 3 days. If you're serious, you'll have this done." Nathan stared at the paper. Background check, home study, temporary custody petition, parenting class enrollment. He didn't hesitate. He got to work. Nathan's mornings changed. Instead of scanning reports with his third espresso by 6 a.m., he now found himself packing school lunches, though Ellie only picked at hers. He hadn't cooked this much since college. Every morning was a mix of mild panic and unfamiliar softness. Hairbrushes, cereal, lost shoes, half-zipped jackets. She never complained. She also never asked to stay. His assistant Lena noticed the shift first. "You haven't been to the office in 8 days." "I'm working remotely," he said. She raised an eyebrow on the video call. "Since when do you care about remote work policies?" He ignored the question. Instead, he asked her to cancel his quarterly advisory retreat in Tahoe. "Should I rebook it?" "No." She paused. "Nathan, is everything okay?" He glanced toward the hallway where Ellie's laughter echoed faintly. She was in the living room, watching cartoons she barely understood, drawing a new picture. "It's getting there," he said. The custody process was grueling. Nathan passed the background check, aced the home inspection, and completed a crash course in parenting offered by a local counselor who normally worked with teen dads. But one box remained unchecked: Claire's relatives. Specifically her cousin Miranda, who until recently hadn't wanted involvement. Miranda had reached out after learning Nathan was petitioning for full guardianship. "She's family," Miranda said sharply during their call. "We don't know you, Nathan. You left Claire years ago. She raised Ellie alone. She never told me Ellie existed." "That's convenient." He didn't argue. What could he say that didn't sound like self-defense? "I'm not trying to erase Claire," he said. "I'm trying to raise her daughter." Miranda hesitated. She loved Ellie more than anything. "You better not screw this up." Then she hung up. That night, Nathan found Ellie asleep on the couch, wrapped in the blanket she insisted smelled like her mom. Her drawing had fallen to the floor. He picked it up. It was a picture of a house with smoke from the chimney. Inside were 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands. A dog sat outside. A speech bubble floated above them. "We're home now." 2 days later, a package arrived from the storage facility. The box of Claire's personal items. Ellie rushed to open it. Inside were books, old sweaters, baby shoes, a worn copy of Charlotte's Web, and, buried at the bottom, a bundle of sealed envelopes. Each one was labeled in Claire's handwriting. "For Ellie. Open when you're 7. You feel scared. You miss me. You find your dad." Ellie stared at that last one for a long time. She didn't open it. Instead, she slid it under her pillow. That night, while Ellie slept, Nathan opened Claire's journal for the first time. The first entry was dated 6 years ago. The same week she left him. "I found out today. I'm pregnant. I don't know what to do. He's brilliant, but he'll run. I'm scared he'll love her too much or not at all." The next few pages unraveled everything Nathan never saw. Claire's fear, her loneliness, her love. He didn't stop reading until sunrise. And when he did, he whispered out loud, to the air, to the silence, "You should have told me." But part of him knew. Maybe she'd tried, and maybe he hadn't listened. The call came on a Monday morning. Nathan had just managed to tie Ellie's shoes correctly for the first time, double knot and all, when his phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. He answered it while she skipped toward the breakfast table. "This is Nathan Cole." "Mr. Cole, this is Karen Dalton, Senior Case Officer for Family Placement Review. I'm overseeing Ellie Emerson's file." Nathan stood up straighter. "Yes, of course. I've been working with Jessica Ford on the temporary petition." "Yes, I've reviewed your file. I wanted to let you know personally that Ellie's maternal relatives have submitted a formal objection to your custody claim." His hand froze mid-air. "They want to challenge guardianship?" "They've submitted a request for full placement. Their argument is based on bloodline and existing familiarity. Ellie stayed with Miranda Emerson briefly after her mother's passing." Nathan's jaw clenched. "Miranda's the one who refused placement. She sent Ellie to a state shelter. I'm aware of the inconsistency, but the court will consider their change of heart. They've agreed to supervised visitation while the case is evaluated." "Visitation?" I'm required to inform you that Ellie will be scheduled for a supervised visit with Miranda later this week. Nathan stared at the counter. A bowl of cereal waited for milk. A half-folded napkin sat under a spoon Ellie had set herself. All of it, routine, fragile, new, now felt threatened. "Thank you," he managed, "for letting me know." When he hung up, Ellie was humming softly. Her backpack was already on, though it sagged on one side. "Can I bring Mommy's letter to school?" she asked. "Just in my bag?" He nodded. But inside, something buckled. At school drop-off, Nathan watched her walk through the gate, small and determined. She turned back once to wave. He waved too, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Back in the car, he gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He'd spent weeks trying to build something real. A life, a home, a future she could trust. And now someone who hadn't wanted her before was trying to take her away. Claire's voice echoed in his mind. Read from the journal pages the night before. "If you ever meet her, don't look for perfection. Just love her. She'll bring you back to life." Back to life. That was exactly what had happened. He couldn't lose Ellie now. 2 nights later, he and Ellie baked cookies together. They didn't have a rolling pin, so she used an empty wine bottle. Flour got everywhere. She didn't care. Afterward, she curled beside him on the couch, watching an old movie while he read more from Claire's journal. Midway through the pages, he found an envelope addressed to him. He hadn't seen it before. Shaking, he opened it. "Nathan, if you're reading this, it means you found her, or she found you. I never meant to keep her from you. I was scared of what it would do to you, to me, to her, but mostly I didn't want to give her false hope if you didn't want us. You always said you weren't made for family, but you were. You just didn't know it yet. If she's with you now, promise me one thing. Don't leave, even when it's hard. She already knows how to survive. What she needs to learn is how to stay." Claire. He didn't realize he was crying until Ellie looked up at him. "Are you sad?" "No," he whispered. "Just remembering something important." She reached for the tissue box and handed it to him without a word. The visitation was scheduled for Friday afternoon at the CPS facility. Ellie sat in the back seat, hugging her drawing pad, quiet. "Do I have to stay with her?" she asked. "No," he said quickly. "You're just meeting." She doesn't smile. "Last time she said I was too loud." Nathan glanced at her in the mirror. "You're not too loud. You're just right." She didn't answer. At the building, a staff member led Ellie inside while Nathan waited in the hallway. The minutes dragged. His phone buzzed twice with updates from his company. He didn't open them. After 20 minutes, the staffer returned. "She asked for you," she said, surprised. Inside the visitation room, Ellie sat stiffly in a plastic chair. Miranda was across from her, holding a clipboard. Her voice was sharp and brittle. When Nathan entered, Ellie jumped up and grabbed his hand. "I want to go home now," she said. Miranda stood. "She needs structure, stability. You're not a parent, Nathan." "You're a headline." "No," he replied. "I'm her father." He walked out without another word, Ellie's hand in his. Outside, in the parking lot, she pulled the letter from her backpack. It was slightly crumpled. "Can I open it now?" Nathan knelt. "Whenever you're ready." She unfolded the paper slowly. Claire's handwriting filled the page. "If one day you find him, hug him. He always had love to give." Ellie looked up, then threw her arms around his neck. "You do," she whispered. "You have love." "I knew it." Nathan closed his eyes. Everything changed in that moment, and none of it would ever be the same. Nathan didn't sleep much that night. After the visitation, Ellie clung to him longer than usual before bed. She didn't ask for stories, didn't draw, just crawled under the blankets and pulled them to her chin. "Can I sleep with the door open and the hallway light on?" she whispered. He left both. Back in the living room, Nathan sat on the couch holding Claire's letter in one hand and his phone in the other. His legal team had texted updates about Miranda's emergency appeal to block guardianship. It would go before a judge in 3 days. 3 days to prove he was more than just a man reacting emotionally to guilt and grief. 3 days to show he was a father. The next morning, Ellie didn't want to go to school. "My stomach hurts," she said, sitting on the stairs, backpack unopened. Nathan sat beside her. "Is it the same kind of hurt as last time?" She nodded. "Not throw up hurt, just twisty." He placed a hand gently on her back. "You don't have to go, not today." She leaned into him, her body relaxing just slightly. "Will I have to go with her?" she asked, voice barely audible. "No," he said firmly. "You're safe here." She didn't ask for proof, but he knew she wanted it. That afternoon, Nathan invited Lena over. She hadn't seen him in person in weeks. The moment she walked into the house, she froze. "This doesn't look like your place." "It's changing," he said. Ellie peeked around the corner, holding her notebook. "Are you the work lady?" Lena laughed. "That's me." "She has pink nails," Ellie whispered to Nathan. "I like her." Lena spent half an hour coloring with her at the dining table. When Ellie excused herself to use the bathroom, Lena turned to Nathan. "She's incredible. She's Claire's. She's yours too." He looked away. "Maybe. DNA says yes, but being a father's more than a match on paper." "Then stop acting like this is still a trial run. You're all in, aren't you?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I am." Lena's voice softened. "Then fight like it." The night before the hearing, Ellie couldn't sleep. She came to Nathan's room in her pajamas, holding her pillow like a shield. "I had a dream Mommy was at the door." He lifted the covers. She climbed in without another word and tucked herself against him. "Was she smiling?" he asked. "No. She was crying. She said don't let go." Nathan closed his eyes. "I won't," he whispered. "I promise." The hearing was held in a plain courtroom with white walls and plastic chairs. Nothing grand, nothing dramatic. Just paper, protocol, and people trying to make decisions about lives they didn't live. Miranda sat with her attorney on the opposite bench. Nathan's lawyer sat beside him, whispering strategy and facts he couldn't process. Ellie sat with a guardian ad litem, clutching a small stuffed bear. The judge reviewed the file, asked questions, and listened. Nathan told the truth. "I didn't know about Ellie," he said. "But since the moment she walked into my life, she's been the center of it. I'm not perfect, but I'm present." Miranda argued stability, familiarity, blood. But she didn't speak of love. When the judge asked Ellie if she wanted to speak, she stood on her chair and held up a crayon drawing. It was Nathan, standing in front of a house, holding her hand. The judge smiled. The room went quiet, and the decision was made. The judge's ruling granted Nathan full temporary custody, with a path toward permanent guardianship pending final review in 6 months. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. When they got home, Ellie didn't ask what the papers meant. She just ran through the front door, dropped her backpack on the floor, and said, "Can I have pancakes for dinner?" Nathan laughed. "You absolutely can." He made them from scratch, burning the first 2 attempts. She said they were perfect anyway. That night, he found her asleep with syrup on her cheek and a drawing of the 2 of them taped to her closet door. He left the hallway light on, and for the first time he closed his own bedroom door, because he didn't feel the need to listen for footsteps anymore. She was staying. A week later, Nathan took her to the beach. It was cold and windy, but she didn't care. She kicked off her shoes and raced across the sand, spinning until she fell over, laughing. Nathan followed, slower, always watching. She built a crooked sand castle and placed a small seashell on top. "This is the roof," she said. "It keeps the rain out." He sat beside her. That's smart. Mommy used to say even the smallest houses need strong roofs. Nathan stared at the sea, wind tugging at his jacket. She said a lot of wise things. Ellie nodded. But sometimes she cried in the bathroom. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. The next challenge came quietly. Her school called. Ellie had frozen during a group reading session. She wouldn't speak. Wouldn't respond. Nathan left a board meeting mid-sentence. He arrived at the school and found her curled under a table, eyes wide and wet. He knelt beside her. "Hey, hey. What happened?" She whispered. "They said to read out loud. I couldn't. I forgot." And then they laughed. He didn't tell her it was okay. He didn't brush it off. Instead, he crawled under the table with her and said, "I'll read with you. Anytime. Just you and me." Later that night, they read together on the couch. She picked Charlotte's Web, the same copy from Claire's box. Halfway through, she said, "I remember this voice." He asked what she meant. "Mommy used to read it, but she always skipped the sad parts." Nathan didn't skip any pages. When they got to the chapter where Charlotte dies, Ellie looked down for a long time. "Did Mommy know she was going to die?" she asked. "I think so. Did she tell you?" "No," he said gently. "She didn't, but she left you stories. She left us both a lot." Ellie curled into his side and didn't say anything for a while. Then, "You're better at reading now." He smiled. So was she. Another month passed. Nathan started scaling back his company role. He stepped down from his CEO position and became an executive advisor. He donated part of his bonus to the group home Ellie had escaped from, on the condition that the staff receive trauma training. Lena visited weekly, often bringing books or puzzles. The house changed, too. Ellie painted the guest room walls pale yellow. She added stars to the ceiling and put up drawings of parks, flowers, and the beach. One morning she asked Nathan if she could move her bed into the bigger room. "Which one?" he asked. "Yours." He smiled. "Let's paint it first." They chose light blue and filled the wall above her headboard with glow-in-the-dark constellations. At night, she traced them with her fingers and whispered facts she learned at school. Nathan listened, always pretending not to know the answers. He liked hearing them from her. One evening, while Ellie was playing outside, Nathan found the last envelope Claire had written. It wasn't for Ellie. It was for him. "If you're still reading, then maybe you stayed. If so, thank you. I never needed you to be perfect. I just hoped you'd still be standing when she found you. Love isn't loud. It's small hands in yours at the end of the worst day. It's pancakes for dinner. It's glue and glitter on the kitchen table. It's bedtime stories read twice. It's being the roof, not just the house." Nathan pressed the letter to his chest. Then he went outside. Ellie was chasing fireflies. "Got one," she called, lifting her hands to the sky. He laughed. "Let it go." "Why?" "Because some lights are meant to fly." She let her fingers open. The firefly blinked twice and floated upward into the twilight. Then she reached for his hand. And he held it, without hesitation. The air turned colder in October. Ellie had been with Nathan for nearly 3 months now. The temporary guardianship hearing had faded into routine. School drop-offs, homework, grocery trips where she always asked for 2 apples, one green, one red, and never explained why. But something in her had started to shift. She laughed more. She hugged tighter. She still had nightmares sometimes. Still stared too long at photos of Claire. But she didn't flinch when Nathan reached for her hand. She didn't ask if he would leave. One Thursday morning, as he tied her shoes, she looked up and said, "You're not going to go away, right?" "Not ever," he replied. And for the first time, she smiled like she believed him. The school hosted a Family Heritage Day. Nathan hesitated at the invitation for a moment, unsure if they were ready. But Ellie wanted to participate. She chose to present a board about her mom's favorite food and music. She drew a French flag in crayon and glued photos from Claire's scrapbook. There was one empty space left. "I want to put a picture of us," she said. Nathan blinked. "Of you and me?" "Yeah, we're family too, right?" He nodded. They printed a photo taken at the beach. She picked one where they were laughing, his arm around her shoulders, her head tilted up toward him. On the day of the event, Ellie stood proudly beside her board. When one of the teachers asked who the man in the photo was, she didn't hesitate. "That's my dad." Nathan swallowed the knot in his throat. Later that evening, she held his hand the whole way home. A few days later, the final review hearing was scheduled. It would determine whether Nathan's guardianship would become permanent. Lena helped gather reference letters. Teachers, neighbors, Ellie's school counselor. Even a pediatrician who'd seen Ellie only once wrote a statement about how calm she'd become around Nathan. But Miranda filed another brief. This time it was personal. She included emails Claire had written during her pregnancy. Messages full of fear, doubt, and worry. The opposing attorney used them to argue that Claire had been scared of Nathan, that she'd deliberately kept him away. Nathan read the brief late at night, after Ellie had gone to bed. He stared at the screen for a long time. The words didn't feel like a knife, but more like a shadow he hadn't fully escaped. Had Claire really feared him? Or had she just feared breaking what was already cracked? He closed the laptop without finishing, and went to check on Ellie. She was asleep, hugging her doll, her small chest rising and falling steadily. He stood in the doorway thinking of Claire. Whatever she'd felt, whatever she'd feared, she had still led Ellie to him. And that had to mean something. 3 days before the hearing, a letter arrived by mail, not from the court, from the shelter. Inside was a card, a thank you note from one of the staff members. "Ellie told us she finally feels like she's not waiting anymore." Nathan sat down slowly. He turned the card over. There was a crayon drawing Ellie must have made before she left. A tall figure with a briefcase in one hand and a heart in the other. Beneath it, in shaky letters, "My dad is learning how to hold things right." The final hearing was held in a different courtroom. This one had wood paneling, thicker chairs, and less fluorescent lighting, but the weight in the air was heavier. Nathan wore a navy suit, not the usual boardroom kind. This one he chose carefully. Not too polished, not too expensive. Just presentable. Ellie wore a yellow dress with tiny white flowers. "Because Mommy said yellow was brave," she reminded him. They sat side by side in the hallway, waiting to be called in. Nathan held her hand. "You nervous?" she asked. "A little." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "You don't have to be. I already picked you." The door opened. They were called in. Miranda sat stiffly on the other side of the courtroom, flanked by her lawyer. She wore black. Her arms were crossed. She looked like she was there to win, not to protect. The judge began by reviewing the full guardianship petition, flipping through a thick binder of paperwork. Then came testimony. Nathan spoke first. He kept it simple. Honest. "I didn't know Ellie existed until the day she found me," he said. "Since then, I've learned more about love than I ever knew running a company or building an empire. I'm not here to prove I'm perfect. I'm here because she's my daughter. And I want to raise her the way Claire would have wanted, safe, seen, and deeply loved." Miranda's lawyer stood and countered with firm logic. "Claire was scared of Mr. Cole during her pregnancy. We have written evidence. She never contacted him after Ellie's birth. Why should we trust him now, after years of absence?" Nathan didn't flinch. He stood again. "Claire was scared," he agreed. "Not of me, but of being alone with the truth. We both made mistakes. But I was never given the chance to show up. And now that I have one, I won't walk away." The judge asked Ellie if she wanted to speak. Everyone turned to her. She walked slowly to the witness chair, legs swinging slightly as she climbed up. "Do you understand what's happening today?" the judge asked kindly. Ellie nodded. "They want to know where I'll live forever." "And do you know what you want?" She reached into her small backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She opened it carefully and handed it to the judge. It was the letter from Claire. "If one day you find him, hug him. He always had love to give." The courtroom went silent. Then Ellie spoke. "I hugged him. He didn't let go." Outside, the autumn wind had picked up. They sat on the courthouse steps, Ellie's hand still in Nathan's. Her legs swung freely as they waited for the judge's decision. "You did amazing," Nathan said quietly. "I was scared." "So was I." "But I remembered what Mommy said." Nathan tilted his head. "What did she say?" "That love isn't loud. It's what stays." He closed his eyes for a second. Then the door opened again. Their attorney stepped out, smiling. "It's done," she said. "The guardianship is permanent." Nathan didn't speak. He just exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath since the day Ellie first whispered, "Daddy, you forgot about me." Ellie jumped into his arms. He caught her, held her, didn't let go. That evening, back home, Ellie asked if they could visit the cemetery again. They drove there in silence. The leaves had started to fall. The grave was just as they'd left it, but the flowers Nathan brought this time were fresh, and Ellie picked yellow. She laid them down gently and stepped back. "I told her," Ellie whispered. "Told her what?" "That we're okay now." Nathan reached into his coat and pulled out Claire's final letter, folded, worn, but never forgotten. He laid it beside the flowers, then took Ellie's hand. They stood together in the fading light, quiet, connected, whole. 6 months later, the house was no longer quiet. There were framed drawings in the hallway, a dent in the kitchen table from a science project gone wrong, and glitter that no vacuum could fully erase. The guest room was now an art room. The master bedroom had a second nightstand, filled with small books and pink hair ties. Nathan's life had changed in 100 ways. He no longer woke up to calendar alerts or investor reports. He woke up to a small voice saying, "Dad, I had a weird dream," or, "Can we have waffles before school?" Sometimes she just said, "Don't go too far today," and he never did. His board of directors adjusted. They offered him a ceremonial role, and he accepted it with no resistance. His time belonged elsewhere now, at school pickups, weekend craft fairs, and messy bedtime routines where he read the same book 3 times because she asked softly, "Just once more." They visited Claire's grave every month. Ellie always brought 2 flowers, one for her mom, and one just in case someone else nearby felt forgotten. Nathan never questioned it. He always brought a letter. One evening, as spring bloomed outside their window, Ellie was drawing at the table. She looked up and said, "Do you think Mommy would be proud?" Nathan didn't hesitate. "Yes, every day." Ellie smiled. "Me too." She held up a new drawing. The same house she always drew, but this time with 3 figures: herself, Nathan, and a small baby wrapped in a blanket. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Is that?" "Future," she said. "In case we ever want to grow." He laughed. "Let's master glitter cleanup first." That night, Nathan sat by her bed, tucking the blanket over her shoulders. "Good night, Elle." "Good night, Dad." She rolled over and closed her eyes, and he just watched her breathe for a while, still in awe that something so fragile had survived so much. Later, as he turned off the lights and walked through the hallway filled with tiny echoes of her laughter, he realized something. He hadn't just found a daughter. He'd found the version of himself that Claire always believed could exist. Not loud, not perfect, just steady, present, and finally, home. 1 year later, Ellie stood in front of her second-grade class, holding a drawing. "This is my family," she said. "It used to be just me and Mommy, but now it's me and Daddy. And sometimes Mommy still visits, in dreams or in songs on the radio." Her teacher smiled. "And what did you learn about family?" Ellie pointed to her chest. "It's not who's always been there. It's who stays." Outside the classroom, Nathan wiped his eyes. He didn't step in. He just watched her shine and realized some love stories don't end. They simply begin again. If this story moved you, take a moment to think about the people who've shown up in your life. Not perfectly, but consistently. Sometimes love doesn't arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it finds us when we least deserve it and stays when we least believe it will. We'd love to hear what this story meant to you. Leave a comment below. What part touched you most? Have you ever had someone show up when you needed them most? And if this story made you feel something, please share it.